Hey everybody, Shane here from GimmeAct.com. Here we are today with a playthrough of Cyber Citizen Shockman 2, a new Menace, going for pretty much all of the story-related achievements. Before we get started, we're going to go into the options, and we're going to take advantage of the cheats. The only cheats you really are going to need are going to be invincible and easy bosses, so make sure you check those two boxes, and then just make sure you leave the other two things alone, as we're going to need to start from the beginning and run all the way to the end in order to get all of the story achievements. Once you are ready, just make sure you start up a new game, get past the title screen and the character select, and then once you actually get into the game, you're going to move on over to the right and then play the intro. It's just going to involve you walking to the right and then meeting a few characters. Nonetheless, once you get to the end of the street, you're going to then meet these people and then have some more dialogue bits. You're going to have your magical girl transformation, and then you're going to have a little bit of combat right here. Pretty straightforward game. It's going to be a run and shoot kind of platformer, so just make sure you gun down these first enemies. Easy peasy. You can hold down the fire button in order to charge up your shot, and that should allow you to do more damage, so make sure you do take advantage of that. But once you take everyone out, you should get a further bit of the cutscene, and then you should be greeted with another title card, which is going to wrap up the intro. And then once you take care of that, you should be good for the first achievement, which is to beat the intro, and then you're actually going to get into the game. So thanks to the cheat codes, the game is pretty much just going to amount you walking to the right and then just skipping past all of the enemies. You can stop and kill them if you really want to, however, it's going to be a complete waste of time since they can't hurt us anyways. You can hold down right trigger to enable fast forward, which is going to speed things up even more. You do want to be a little careful with it though. Once you get to the second screen, you're going to be introduced to platforming for the first time. So you definitely want to try to lay off the fast forward in order to make the jumps easier since there's going to be knockback. So just make sure you make your way up and then make sure you just keep advancing screens and taking advantage of the invincibility, and you should be able to blow through this game easy peasy. Now, this game is going to be completely linear. Unlike the first game, there is not going to be a stage select, so we're just going to advance from level to level. Once we clear the first two screens, we're going to be on to the first boss fight right here. You're going to be atop these roofs right here. You're going to have the boss fly in. If you do fall off the roof, you are going to be able to live. However, you are going to enter jetpack mode. When in jetpack mode, you cannot fire at the boss, so make sure you try to land on one of the rooftops and then just blast away. Thanks to the easy bosses cheat, you should be able to defeat most of the bosses in only a few hits or so. Once you take care of the first boss, that should be the first stage out of the way, which should get us the next achievement as soon as we load in right here. And that pretty much should be it for the game. The two cheat codes should take care of the entirety of the run. There's going to be a total of 9 stages that we have to get through. Should take you about anywhere from a half hour to 45 minutes to get through. Now, if you do end up getting stuck on anything, we're going to have a supercut playthrough that you can skip through in case you need help on anything specific. So with that out of the way, let's get started. So this is going to be stage 2. We're going to have a shooter segment right here. These are going to be very straightforward. All you really have to do is just make it to the right. You can shoot the enemies if you want to, but these stages pretty much play themselves because they are going to be auto-scrollers. Once you get past the big pile of balls and then past this barrier, you're going to encounter the stage 2 boss right here. All you have to do is just make sure you gun it down. The easy bosses cheat is going to still work on these shooter segments, so these should be easy peasy as well. Once we clear that, we're going to dock and then get our next achievement right here. And then we're going to move on into the sewers, which is going to be the start of stage 3. This one's going to be very straightforward. Just jump into the water and then make your way forward. You're going to have some basic enemies along the way, but more importantly, about a fourth of the way through the stage, you're going to have this enemy that pops out of the water. You're going to want to shoot it. It is going to have multiple heads, so just make sure you keep shooting it as it pops up, and then eventually, once you finish taking it out, the current is going to take you on to the next part of the game. So once we start up stage 4, we're going to be right here. You are going to need to blast your way through this wall, as you cannot pass through it until you blow it up. Once you get to the next screen, we're going to have a traditional side-scrolling segment, and then once we get to the end of this, we're going to have our first mid-stage boss. So make sure you try to clear this. It's going to be this Dinosaur. The easy bosses cheat is still going to work for the mid-stage bosses, thankfully, so you should be able to blow this thing up in only a couple of hits or so, and then once you take it out, you should also be good for an achievement right after this. more traditional 2D side-scrolling that's going to take place in order to wrap up stage 4. Make sure you keep progressing forward and then take these few elevator rides right here until you get to the actual boss fight atop this building right here. After the cutscene, you're going to fight this thing. Just make sure you take it out in a few hits, and that's going to be another stage out of the way right after this cutscene. There's the achievement for it, and then we're going to have another shooter segment. So again, just make sure you let it auto-scroll, and make sure you take out the enemies along the way, and then once you get to the boss fight, just make sure you take it out as you normally would, taking advantage of the 2 cheats once again. And then once this stage is taken care of, it's going to be off to another achievement with stage number 5 cleared. Then we're going to get into stage 6. Just make sure you power your way through the side-scrolling segments. Again, super duper easy peasy thanks to invincibility. Then we're going to get to the next room, which is going to be like that one level from the Hyperstone heist. You're going to have another mini boss right here. This is going to be the first enemy that you kind of have to figure out. You just can't rely on your cheat codes. They're going to have these 2 legs that are going to have these square bits on them. These are going to block all your shots. You're going to need to time your shots. Make sure you try to shoot over them, and then you should be able to take out these 2 spider things. And then once you take them out, you should be good to move on. Unfortunately, this is one of the few mini bosses that doesn't have its own achievements, so we're just going to power on to this giant long elevator ride. Once you get off said elevator ride, you're going to have your rival fight right here. So make sure you take out Proto Man, and then once he is dealt with, you're going to be good for some more cutscene. But more importantly, once all that's over, you should be good for another achievement right here. And then we're going to keep moving forward as we're going to have more side-scrolling to get. This is going to be the part of the game where you would go for the first bit for that achievement, so do feel free to stop and then get that. However, you can't always come back because there is going to be stage select in the game. So just make sure you either get the achievement or you could just skip past it. It doesn't really matter because we can come back to it. Then we're going to have more vertical side scrolling. This one's going to be a little bit easier than the one previously since there's no knockback with these fire turrets, thankfully. So just power your way through to the top and then move on to the next part of the game. Once you get to the top of this thing, you're going to have a cutscene with your rival. Once that's done, you're going to be ambushed by this mini boss. Make sure you take it out. Very easy. It's going to take a single shot to the head. And then after you take it out, you should be good for another mini boss achievement right here. Then you're going to have more side scrolling. Make sure you get through this. Very easy to figure out. Can't get lost. Super duper linear. Once you get to the end of this, you're going to have another vertical side scrolling segment, which is going to be a recycle of the previous one. Just power your way to the top. Again, there's no knockback, thankfully. So just make sure you keep jumping up. And then once you get to the top, you should be good to start the actual stage boss fight against the giant cyborg ninja. Make sure you take it out. Again, it is going to be super easy. It's going to take a few more shots, but you should be able to take it out super quickly. And then once that's done, stage 6 should finally be over. And then we can begin the next side-scrolling shooting segment. So again, make sure you auto-scroll through this the best you can, and then once you actually get into the enemies, just make sure you keep blasting away until you progress to this screen, and then finally encounter the boss in the form of this spaceship. Take it out, easy peasy. Once it crashes down, you should be good for stage 7 and other achievements to go along with it. Moving on to stage 8, which is going to be pretty easy to figure itself out. Traditional side-scrolling segment. You're going to have these towers that pop up. However, you only need to destroy the last one on the screen in order to get to the next screen. So just make sure you move as far as you can, and then once you hit a dead end, just blow up the last tower, and then you should be able to drop to the next screen as you normally would. So you're going to have to do some work for these parts. Once you get to this part, you're going to have these giant robots right here. You're supposed to platform across them. However, you can just jump into the pit of lava right here and just bounce your way all the way to the end, which is probably going to be way faster. Then you're going to have one more screen of side scrolling. Again, make sure you blow up the last tower so you can progress. And then once you get to the next screen, you're going to have the next boss fight right here in the form of the moving heads. These can be a little tricky as you can only damage them with the charge shot. So make sure you are charging up your shots on this or this fight's going to take forever. After you hit one with enough charge shots, it's going to petrify itself. And then once you petrify all 5, you should have a solid platform to stand on, and you should be able to move on to the next segment of the level. So hopefully you are able to power through that very annoying mid-level boss fight and then get to the next screen. Once you do, you should be good for the achievement for taking care of these guys. It's going to be during this segment where you can get the second bit related achievement, which is going to be missable like the other. However, once again, there's going to be stage select, so you can always come back and get it later if you do miss it. Nonetheless, just make sure you move on to the next screen, and then once you get to the next few screens forward, you should be good for another rival encounter. Make sure you take him out again, and then once you take care of Proto Man, you should be good for teaming up with him, and that should also get you another achievement. Then we're going to have some more side-scrolling bits. Just make sure you power forward, and this is going to end in another super duper long elevator ride. So make sure you try to get through this one. This one is going to be very annoying to get through since it is going to be super long. So hold down that fast forward button for dear life. Once you get to the top, though, you're going to have to wait here for an excruciating amount of time. These bits of stars are going to fall from the ceiling. You're going to need to let that happen a few times, and there's going to be a huge gap in between each one. So just make sure you hold down that right trigger and just fast forward through that the best you can. So if you don't die from boredom waiting through all of that stuff, you should be able to progress to the next screen. You're going to have a bunch of cutscene stuff, and eventually you're going to have the final boss encounter right here. This is going to be another boss fight where you're going to have to figure out how to defeat it. The thing you need to do is you need to make sure you jump on the left side. Make sure you stand on this part of the boss's legs. Then you're going to need to aim up and then take out the gun turret right here on its left side. So make sure you do that. You should be able to stand still right here and get a good shot on it and then take it out. You can use your charge shots also if that helps, but nonetheless, just make sure you blow this thing up. Once you take care of it, in quintessential video game fashion, you are going to have to do the same thing for the other side's gun turret. So make your way to the opposite part of the structure, and then make sure you shoot it from the bottom again. You are going to need to be a little patient since you're going to have to wait until the boss is standing in the right part of the screen to scroll it over, and that way you can move since you can't necessarily jump over the boss and you're going to have a hard time of navigating through its legs. So make sure you drop off to the left and make sure you go under the legs, and then once you are able to be on the right side of the boss, then you should be able to make your way up. You're going to have to kind of finagle with where the boss is standing, since if the boss is going to be off screen, you can't move past its right legs. So be a little patient with this one. You are going to have to play around with it a bit, but once you finally get the right positioning, just make your way up to that sweet spot and then blast away. Once both of the gun turrets are taken out, you're going to have a gem pop up in the middle on top of the boss. Just make sure you stand on either side and just keep jumping and shooting. You should be able to take it out in a few charge shots, and then once you finally do, the boss should be defeated, but you are going to have to wait until it moves all the way to the right. So make sure you let that little animation play out. Once that's all taken care of, the boss should drop off and have his last bit of conversation with you. Then you're going to teleport on over to the Mega Man 2 intro, and this is going to be where you unlock the last achievement that you need for the story. That should be everything minus the 2-bit related achievements. If you do need help on those, we will cover those separately, but that's going to be it for the story. Hopefully you enjoyed the guide, but that's going to be it for the game, and that's all there is to it.